Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
Be remiss if we didn't at least start conversations with the biggest news around town. And kind of it is passing of Jim Brown, legendary running back of the Cleveland Browns, who did pass away late last week at the age of 87. A lot of stories, people telling a lot of stories, the different generations of people that have seen him, grew up, were taught what Cleveland sports was, who Jim Brown was. And Chris, I know that you've worked with NFL Network, so you've kind of seen the NFL, not just from a local standpoint, but from a national standpoint. But your thoughts, I'm sure you've probably shared some of them already, but your thoughts kind of as a lot of people remembering Jim Brown, rightfully so, over the past several days.
Yeah, so my father passed away 11 years ago, and obviously I miss him every day, but it's times like this where I really miss him, right? My oldest brother, who's in his 60s, went to the 1964 championship as a 7-year-old, and Jim Brown was his sports hero. My memories actually have to deal with interviewing Jim Brown. I just gotten to CNN Sports Illustrated in 1996 at the age of 25, and it was just CNN Sports. They had a couple of half-hour shows a day, and then they became CNN Sports Illustrated, essentially the competitor of ESPN News. So it was now a 24-hour sports news network, and I was the youngest host there. And they were like, Jim Brown's coming in today. You get to interview him. And I was like, nope. Age 25, here I get to interview Jim Brown. And I told him, hey, Brown, I'm from Cleveland. My dad was friends with Art Modell, the whole bit. I worked for the Browns for a little while. And we had a nice interview. Hopefully I didn't wet myself too much. And then years later, he was the first ever guest on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. And I said, Mr. Brown, I actually had a chance to interview with CNN several years ago. I'm the kid from Cleveland. And so every time he came on the show, he'd always go, you're the Cleveland kid.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Now, he was far from a perfect person. He was flawed. And there have been some tremendous articles written about him. My favorite, I think, is from my former colleague at NFL Network, Jim Trotter, who just signed on with The Athletic. If you have a subscription to that, please read it. I think it really kind of, helps identify a lot of the feelings that a lot of us have, right? Because you always want to be able to root for your athletes. And, this is a man who changed not only football, but society. And I don't think there are a lot of people that can say that. At the same time, there were several incidents, some in which he was never charged, some in which he was, that are really tough to talk about at times like that. But I think it is important that you talk about the entire person when you're talking about the life of somebody. So, did some tremendous things, had some serious flaws, and I don't think you'll get a lot of pushback that you can say was the greatest football player that ever lived.